Well, hello. Welcome to another day of the free web development bootcamp. If you're joining in for the first time, hi, my name's Ramon. My friend Jess and I are doing this bootcamp for free. Everything is recorded, so don't stress if you're just finding this for the first time and you're like, "Oh my goodness, I got to catch up." Don't worry. This is all self-paced. Everything goes on YouTube. There's the link on YouTube. Let's do a couple links before we get started. If you want to find out what the next times are for the boot camp, I'm going to throw this into the chat. Here's our schedule. So check that out. If you want to join on Discord, going to throw that in the chat. If you want to join us in the forum, if you want to contribute, oh, hold on, let me highlight it. Everybody having a good day today? Feel free to shout out where you're tuning in from. I'd love to hear from you. And finally, the forum link. There we go. Amazing. And of course, in accordance with the bootcamp, when you're participating, please make sure to keep with the code of conduct, bit.ly, BWC, COC, as shown below me right here. Okay. So, friends, I'm excited today because we'll be doing a two-parter, starting with one of the bigger exercises. Oh, learners tuning in from a village in Odisha. I hope I said that right. I'm so sorry. Great to have you here as always. Yeah, let's hop right in, shall we? So today we'll be learning CSS variables by building a city skyline. Now, if you haven't heard of CSS variables before, this is going to be super exciting, super fun. I'm a big fan myself. And you know, they were only recently added to CSS. Okay, when I say recently, I want to say like within the last 5-ish years or so, maybe 7. It's been a long, it doesn't feel like it's 2023. Cool. So let me hop right in. What I'm going to do, okay, is I'm going to, because the first couple steps involve, writing out our doc type tag and all that, and it's stuff that we've done before. So I just want to go into the first lesson now to see a preview of what we're going to build, which, goodness, this looks very cool. I'm quite excited to be doing, and you can see a little bit of like gradients, some box shadow with what's that called? Blur radius. I think this is going to be fun. So we're going to jump a couple steps ahead into lesson 5, I believe. Nope, lesson 4. Oh, here's a preview of what you will build blank. I think that was a bit of a bug. My bad. Yeah, so we've defined our doc type, our HTML lang, and our head element. So I'm just going to hop right in. Friends, if you're tuning in live, feel free to interrupt me with questions. If there's something that's a little bit more exploratory, I'm going to save that for the Q&A session at the end. But please, never, ever feel like you can't interrupt me. So we're adding some meta tags, UTF-8 for the encoding, and a title element with city skyline in it. Title. There we go. And we're going to link to our CSS file. Rel is going to be style sheet. And the href or the href is going to be styles.css. That's all done. Let's check our code. Looks good. We finished our head element. We'll pat ourselves on the back, pat. And we're going to go right ahead, start writing some CSS. So we're going to target every single element with the asterisk. That is not an asterisk. Is this an asterisk? No. Is this an asterisk? Yes. So we're going to target every single element and give it a border. It's going to be a border of 1 pixel, solid. So it's going to be a solid border. We can already see it. And the color is going to be black. So it's a 1 pixel element, solid and blank. Now you might be wondering, hold on, what's going on here? Well, we've got our body element and our HTML element, both of which have that solid border. So that's why that's showing up. Let's check our code. Looks good. Pat. We go right ahead. Cool. So you might see this pop up. Remember, this bootcamp is free. Free Code Camp is free. We're collaborating with them. If you want to donate to them, you can. Don't feel stressed to do so. I'm doing so in my learning account. This is teaching account, so I'm going to go with Ask Me Later for now. Cool. So we're going to add a box sizing property to our every single element and use border box to reset all of that. This will make it so the border you added doesn't add any size to your elements. Fantastic. All done. Pat, pat. And we go right ahead into the next one. So we can see the body, the innermost box on our page. The box around it is the HTML element. Cool. So let's make our body fill the whole viewport by giving it a height of 100 viewport height. So body is going to have a height of 100 VH. We're going to remove the default margin by setting the margin to 0. Margin set to 0. And we'll set the overflow property to hidden. There we go. And that way we're going to remove all of the scroll bars, which you saw. I don't know if you saw that. They disappeared. Hold up. Delete. Watch the scroll bars on the side. They're kind of on the edge there, but you can see them here. Like you can see me highlighted and messing around with it. If I undo, bring the overflow hidden back, now the scroll bars are gone. You can see the margin's gone, so everything's very close together. We've got that margin, that border there. Those are two borders, HTML and body. Check our code, pat, pat, and we keep going. So let's do a div within our body with a class of background-buildings. And this will contain all of the buildings from our city skyline. Remember, it too has a border. So you can see it's kind of thick at the top. Submit our code, looks good, pat, pat, and we keep going. So our background buildings, remember we use the dot to target those in CSS because of its class. We'll give it a width of 100%. Nothing changed. The border's still there at the top, but if we give it a height of 100%, now we're going to see the border is now 3 pixels thick, one for the HTML, one for the body, and one for the background buildings div, because now they are filling in entirely. Check our code. Looks good. Pat, pat. Keep going. So inside our body buildings, we're going to have a div with the class of BB1. Close that. There we go. So we've got a class in here with a div here with a class of BB1. We can already see the border showing up there. So in our style CSS file, we'll give BB1 a width of 10% and a height of 70%. BB stands for background building. To me, it kind of sounds like baby. BB. So our background building, this will be our first building. So width of 10%, height of 70. So BB1 will have, our first BB will have a width of 10% and a height of 70%. And great, you can see there, let me see if it shows up on the stream. It's a little blurry, like it's a little hard to see, but you can see there's a border here showing up. So that's done. Check our code, pat, pat. On to the next challenge. So we're going to put 4 divs inside BB1. They're going to call it BB1A, BB1B, BB1C, and BB1D. Try saying that 5 times super fast. I will not, because I am live on stream. And I don't want to confuse myself anymore. Thank you very much. So there's our BB1A. You know what? I'm going to be lazy. Paste, 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 copy, paste. Amazing. So BB1B, BB1C, BB1D. And look, 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 look. Check out all of the borders there. So if we count, right? HTML, body, div number 1, div number 2, and then 4 more divs. So this top border is 8 pixels thick times 2. No, minus 2. Do you know what? I'm not going to do math today. There's a lot of pixels in there. Pat, pat. Cool. We got this. Keep going. So the parts of our building width and height properties of these values. So BB1A is going to get 70 and 10% of width and height respectively. BB1B will get 80 and 10. BB1C will get 90 and 10, and BB1D will get 170. Remember that these percentages are relative to the parent, and note that the heights will add up to 100 vertically filling in the container. The heights, 10 plus 10 is 20, plus 10 is 30, plus 70 is 100. That is correct. Cool. So BB1A will have a width of 70% and a height of 10%. Then we'll do BB1B, which I forgot the class. Thank you for reminding me. Friends, if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, feel free to interrupt me. That's why we're live. BB1B will have a width of 80% and a height of 10%. You can see it's already starting to show up in our preview. BB1C will have a height, a width of 90, that is not a 90%, and a height of 10%. And finally, BB1D will have, and I already lost my place because it's a lot to write, 100% width and 70% height. 100 width, 100%. I'm just at that point where my microphone is blocking me. There we go. Height is how much? 70. Cool. So we can see it's kind of got like a skyscrapery pointy thing going on. I believe that's the technical term. Cool. That's done. Check our work. I'm not going to pat yet. Now I can. Pat. Cool. Look at us drawing art, huh? Cool. So we're going to center the parts of your building by turning the BB1 element into a flexbox parent. Flex direction and align items to center the children. Great. So we want to center them horizontally. So first we're going to have display flex to use our flexbox. But look what happens now. Because flexboxes by default are arranged in rows, now we've got all of those BB parts next to each other, but we want them above, on top of each other, stacked. So we want flex direction to be column back here, and our align items property will be set to center, American spelling. There we go. So now we can see they are centered on top of. Hi, Ree, good to see you. So now we can see we are just at the part where we're starting to draw our first building. Great. So we've aligned those items. We can see they're on top of each other. Looks good. Let's check our code. We pass. Pat. Look at that. We're already like 14 steps in. My goodness. Don't look at how many there are. We've got 2 days to do this. So great. Now we're ready to create our first variable. So let's talk about variables real quick. If you haven't done much programming before, variables are kind of like, Jess and I like to think of these as boxes where you put in a value. You don't care what's in that box just by looking at it. You just need what's inside. Hey, we give this box a label. Let's call it, for example, building color 1. Hey, give me the value, please, of what's inside this box. So first I need to tell CSS, hey, the value inside this box is this color. This means that I only need to declare that color once. And whenever I want to use this color again, instead of writing #999, I can just reuse this building color variable. So that means that I've got a box that I can access at any time to get that color. That's one convenience. The other convenience is that if at any point later on, let's say I'm drawing this for a client, and the client comes back to me and says, actually, I don't like the color 999. Let's change it to 888. Instead of going to every BB1 part and changing that 999 to an 888 using, say, find and replace or something, I only have to change it once by changing the value inside that variable, or go into that box and say, cool, we don't want this, we want this instead. So that's what's convenient about variables. So the way to declare variables in CSS is to use this double dash and then say, this is the variable I want. This is the name, and I can give it any name I want as long as there's no spaces. We need dashes to separate words. And colon, and then the value. So in the rule for the BB1 class, we'll create our very own variable called building color 1 and give it a value of 999. The way this works is dash dash. Now we create our variable name, and this can be any name we want. We can call it cats, for example. For the sakes of this exercise, we're calling this variable building dash color 1. So this variable is going to hold the value of the color 999. If I could spell that correctly. There we go. So this doesn't mean we're applying this color anywhere. It just means we're storing it in this box, in this variable. So now we've declared our very first variable. Let's check our code. Everyone's happy. Pat, pat. Great. So if we ever want to use that variable, we will use the syntax of var, and then in brackets, put that variable name. Now remember, it always must start with that double dash. That means that whatever value you put in that box will just be brought out and used in that context. So for example, if I wanted to say, change, in this case, what the exercise wants us to do is to apply the background color to be the value of that building color 1 variable. So BB1A is going to have as a background color that variable's value. But we know it doesn't have to be just background color. We can use it in any context where a variable where the color can be used. For example, let's try something else just for fun. This isn't part of the exercise. Let's say we want BB1B's border to be that same color. We can use border. So let's say we want it to be 50 pixels thick. We want it to be solid, and we want the color to be the value of that variable, building color 1. Okay, maybe 50 pixels is too thick. Let's go with 5 pixels instead. Great. Now, notice what happened. Oh, forgot my semicolon. Thank you. So notice what happened. The color of the border has now been changed to be this gray color. What's cool about this is that, notice, I can even use this variable inside a property declaration with multiple arguments. So we have 5 pixels, solid, and our building color. Now, if I want to change both this background and this border, I just have to come here and change this to be purple. What's purple? FF00FF. That's a very strong purple, but you get my point. Now I've changed it, and in both places it's changed. This is the magic of variables. Doesn't have to be just colors, by the way. It can be values, it can be pixels, it can be thicknesses, whatever y'all like. However, I will remove this because it's not part of the exercise. We just wanted to apply that background color. All done. Check our code. Looks good. Pat, pat. Great. So for the rest of the building, we're going to apply that same background color. So that's var, and in brackets, dash, dash, building color 1. We're going to fill in the rest of the building with that same background. So you know what I'm going to do, friends? I'm just going to copy, paste, 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 because I'm lazy. And there we go. Check our code. Looks good. Pat, pat. How very relaxed. Oh, look what we're doing. So now we're going to change the value of our variable from 999 to AA80FF. And you can see how it gets applied to everywhere where we use the variable. This is what we're talking about a bit. And this is the main advantage. Free Code Camp puts it much better than me. Main advantage of using variables, being able to quickly change many values in your style sheet by just changing the value in one place. Copy because I'm lazy. Oh, wow, I like that purple. So you can see, all done. We've applied our new color. Pat, pat. Nice. I hope we keep that color. I don't think, oh no, we will. Nice. Great. So now that we've done our first building, we're going to make 3 more BBs, BB2, BB3, and BB4. these will be the three more of the buildings in the background. Fantastic. So div with a class of bb2. Close that. And you know what? You know what I'm going to say, friends? I'm lazy, so I'm going to copy, paste. So we're going to have a bb3 and a bb4. You can see them kind of stacked at the bottom because remember, by default, we're displaying blocks, so all of the buildings are now chunked at the bottom. Check our code. Looks good. Pat. It's very relaxing to do this. So we're going to give the new buildings width and height properties of 10% and 50 for BB2, 10 and 55 for BB3, 11 and 58 for BB4. You will be using almost all percent-based units and some flexbox for this project, so everything will be completely responsive. Ooh, I do like responsive. Great, so BB2 is going to have a width of 10% and a height of 50%. That's BB2 done. BB3 is going to have a width of 10% and a height of 55%. That's not a percent. This is a percent. I can't type today. BB4 is going to have a width of 11%. There we go again, not being able to type. Everything's fine. 58% for that. Great. Now, of course, they're still stacked on top of each other. That's why we don't see them yet. So we'll check our code. Or pass. Pat. Great. So, see? The buildings are currently stacked on top of each other. We're going to align them by making the background buildings a flexbox. And we'll use align items and justify content to evenly space the buildings across the bottom of the element. So first we'll display flex. Now the buildings are next to each other. Then we'll use align items. Actually, I don't know what the values of align items what the possible values are. So I'm just going to open a quick tab here and go to CSS tricks. I love this guide so much. I'm going to send it to all of you. It's just so good because I always forget how to do flex boxes. So if you're curious, want to learn more about flex boxes, down there. Great. So we want align items. Let me just scroll down here. Is the text too small? Let me make it a little bigger. Flex flow. Justify content, we want space between. But for align items, I think we want them to be at the end. Where's align items? There we go. Flex start. See, flex end. This is what I want because we want the buildings to be like along the floor. So let's start with that. End. Not bad. Now they're kind of like on the floor, which is good. On the ground. This isn't the future yet. No floating buildings for us. So the justify content value will be set to space between. Look at that. Now the buildings are sort of like evenly spaced out. That looks good. But does the code agree? It does not. You should add an align items of flex end. My bad. Flex end. Cool. It does the same thing. I wonder, I did make a mistake. It looks like I made an accidental positive. So if you ever want to align them to the end, don't be like me. Don't just put end, put flex end. There we go. Whoops. No, I don't want to reset. Gosh, that was bad. Check my code. Oh, but I'm getting there. Oh, I want space evenly. Really? To evenly space. See, this is what happens when you don't read, friends. Ramon should read space evenly. That actually does look better. Cool. There we go. Pat. Let's keep going. Oh, apparently the buildings are too spaced out. Let's squeeze them together by adding 2 empty div elements at the top of the background buildings element and 2 more at the bottom of it and 1 more between BB3 and BB4. These will be added as evenly spaced elements across the container, effectively building moving the buildings closer to the center. Cool, let's give that a try. Div, close div, 2 empty div elements to the top. So copy paste. Then we want to add 2 to the bottom. And we want 1 more in between BB3 and BB4. Cool. So what's going on here is we're adding more stuff to the flexbox so that the flexbox says, oh, got to space these out, right? Evenly. So it's kind of like there are invisible buildings now. Cool. Let's check our code. Looks good. Pat, pat. Keep moving. Oh, great. We're going to add a new variable. So we're going to call this one building color 2. We're going to give it a value of hashtag 66cc and 99. We're going to set that as the background color of BB2. So the background color of BB2 is going to be var building color 2. All done. Let's check. It's not showing up though. Let's check our code. So it looks like this was intentional. And if somebody is wiser than me, they probably know why it's not showing up as the background color. Pat, pat. Free Code Camp, they set us up on purpose. That didn't work. If somebody knows, please do say why in the chat. So we should add a fallback value to a variable by putting it as the second value of where you use the variable like this. So we use var and the variable name, as well as the fallback value separated with a comma. The property will use the fallback value when there's a problem with the variable. Add a fallback value of green to the background color of BB2. So if there's a problem with the variable building color 2, we'll use green. And Mitch is saying they're going to tell us in the next step or two. Great. So, and Grace with the knowledge. Thank you, Grace. BB2 elements don't know about BB1 variables. Let's take a look at that real quick, because we've declared this variable in BB1, but BB2 is not a descendant of BB1. BB2 is not a descendant of BB1. And remember, the C in CSS, it stands for cascading. So the stuff that we declare here cascades down to its children, but they don't get shared with siblings. So that's the thing. Mitch says, it's a sibling. Thank you both. So let's check our code. We've got our fallback working. Pat, pat. So we're going to create a new variable below the other ones named building color 3, and we'll give it that value CC6699. So building color 3, set that to be hashtag CC6699. By the way, you might be seeing these colors show up. Some editors will show these, some will not. This one, I believe, uses the same engine as VS Code, and that's why it looks kind of similar. I forget what the name of that engine is. Something like Metro or something. Could be wrong. Anyway, so we will use that as the background color of BB3 and give it a fallback value of pink. Cool. So the background color of BB3 is going to be building color 3. Not going to work. We already know why, but we'll find out why from Free Code Camp as well. Looks good. Check our code. Pat, pat. Keep going. Look at us just blazing through this. So that didn't work because the variables you declared in BB1 do not cascade to to BB2 and BB3 because they're siblings. That's I like this. That's just how CSS works. And this is by design. Styles are meant to cascade. Due to this, variables are often declared in the root selector. And this is at the highest level of CSS. Putting your variables there will make them usable everywhere in your CSS. So we will add the root selector to the top of your style sheet and move all of our variable declarations there. So that's :root. And root is kind of like a tree. It's at the very core, at the very core of what the CSS does. So this is going to be applied at the very top of our page, of our structure. So what we're going to do is take all of these variables, cut them, move them all the way here to the root. Now they can be accessed everywhere in our CSS. And you might notice these are different colors now. These aren't green and pink. These are teal and magenta. I'm bad at color names, but y'all know what I mean. Actually, we can try that. Magenta. Okay, so that's magenta. But you notice, see, I changed the variable name here. Worked there too. And it doesn't have to just be hashtag colors. It could even be an RGB. Mitch says he looked it up and Stack Overflow had a page that said root was above the HTML and star selectors. Exactly. Thank you for looking that up. The star, remember, applies to every element, not just to the top. In fact, let me show you what I mean. If I make the border, let me show you how they're not the same. Because this isn't the top per se, but we're applying this to every single element. Let me show you what I mean. If I put a background color at the root, let's make it red. Whole website's red. Sorry about the very, very glaring color. Let's make it pink. Is pink less? Yeah, okay, that's a little less intense. Now notice, every single element, it's not that every single element has a background color of pink, just that the root, the very top, has a background color of pink. What if we do it to every single element? It looks the same, but it's not quite. Now, the root has the background color of pink. The HTML has a background color of pink. The body, each and every building has the background color of pink. But you're probably thinking like, hold on, no, it's not true because these ones have their colors as before. And that's because lower down in our CSS, we're applying new background colors that overwrite the existing pink background color. I'll show you what I mean even more. Without the background color, what if I took this border thing and applied it at the root? Notice the difference. Now the border, let's make it 5 pixels to illustrate this more. Now the border is only being applied to the root of the website, not, as it was before, to every single element. Sorry about that tangent. Just thought it might be interesting to explore the difference there. But cool. We've got that done. Is it working, though? Let's check our code. Amazing. Pat, pat. Great. So now that we've worked out the bugs, let's remove those fallback values in the 2 places they were used. Cool. I don't mind removing code. Deleting code is kind of a relaxing thing. It's like things you don't need to read anymore and worry about. Great. Removed our fallbacks. Looks good. Pat, pat. We'll keep going. All right, we're going to add another variable called building color 4. It's going to have a value of 53, 80C, and 66. 538C, C6. Great, and we're going to use that to fill in the final building, which is BB4. There we go. Background color of variable building color 4. Ah, nice. Now we've got all of our buildings colored in. Pat, pat. Look at that. We're already 20% of the way. Amazing. So those background buildings are starting to look pretty good. We'll have a new div below the background buildings and give it a class of foreground buildings. This will be another container for more buildings. Yay, more buildings. So div with a class of foreground dash, not colors, buildings. Close that div. And that's it. I think that's all I wanted from us. Yep, looks good. Pat, pat. Great. We want the foreground buildings to sit directly on top of the background buildings element. So foreground dash buildings. Give it a width of 100%, a height of 100%, and a position of absolute. Set the top to 0. Now we don't see anything yet, but we got to trust our code. This will make it the same size as the body and move the start of it to the top left corner. So now there is an invisible foreground buildings element up here. Great. All done. Pat, pat. Great. We're going to nest 6 div elements within foreground buildings and give them the classes of FB1 and FB6 in that order. FB stands for foreground building. This will be 6 more buildings for the foreground. So div class is set to FB1. Friends, you know what I'm going to do next, right? Because I'm lazy. We're going to copy paste. Copy. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Look at all those very thick borders there. 3, FB4, FB5, 5, 5, and 6. Great. Should be done. Pat, pat. So we'll give these 6 new elements these width and height values. Okay, let's blaze through these. FB1 is going to have a width of 10%, a height of 60%. Hey, see, they're starting to show up. FB2 is going to have a width of 10% and a height of 40%. Whew, okay, here we go. There we go. There's our next one. FB3 is going to have a width of what? 10 and 35. 10% and 35%. 8% and 45 for FB4. FB4 is going to have a width, I already forgot. 8% and 45%. 8% and a height of 45%. FB5 is going to have 10 and 33. FB5 is going to be 10. I already forgot. 10 and 33. And finally, 9 and 30. Do you know what? I'm going to copy this. Not because I'm lazy this time, just because I get distracted very easily. FB6, I'm just going to put that there. Width of 9%, height because of 38%. Cool. So we're not seeing the show because remember they're being stacked on top of each other. But my guess is we're going to have to do some flex boxing. Pass pat. Pat, not pass pat. There we go. Display, align items, and justify content to and values to foreground buildings that you used in background buildings. Again, this will use Flexbox to evenly space the buildings across the bottom of the container. So first off, display flex, boom, next to each other. Amazing. Then we're going to use align items of flex end. Now they're on the floor, on the ground, pardon me. And justify content is going to be set to space evenly, not between. And you can kind of see now that the buildings are showing up, and notice they're in front because we're in the foreground. Cool. Is that done? Yeah, pat. Nice. We should optimize our code. Move the position and top properties values from foreground buildings to background buildings. Then select both. Mitch says, are the foreground buildings in front of the background buildings because they come later in the index.html document? Neither of them have a z index, so that can't be the reason. And that's correct. So because the, let's look at our HTML real quick. The background buildings come before the foreground buildings. When we position them with absolute, they're going to be drawn on top. If we wanted the background buildings to be on top, we know what to do. Z index set to 5. Right? I don't know why that's not working. Give me a sec. Let's just experiment with this. Foreground, I keep wanting to hyphenate that. Buildings set to be Z index of 1. Z index of 5 and Z index of 1. Oh, hold up. Typo. Well, that's not it. In theory, the background building should now be on top. Isn't it that the bigger the Z index, the more in the front? Z index CSS. Yeah, the bigger the Z index. Oh, hold on. The Z index one. Oh, Mitch says, because the background buildings don't have position absolute. That seems to affect which elements are on top of each other. Thank you, Mitch. That is good to know. I'm rubbish with Z index. Cool. Sorry about the detour. So we will move the position and top properties and values from foreground buildings to background buildings. There, select it. Effectively applying those styles to both elements, you can use a comma to separate selectors like this. Okay, cool. So let's do this again. Move the position and top properties and values from foreground buildings to background buildings. Oh, this is where the Z index thing will work again. Okay. Position and top properties and values from foreground buildings to background buildings, which we're doing here. Then select both background buildings and foreground buildings there, effectively applying. Oh, look at that. There it is. Now the foreground buildings are behind. Effectively applying. So, comma, foreground buildings. Whew, there we go. You can use a comma to separate those both. So we've optimized our code a little bit, but we still need to delete those things from here. So we're probably going to do that in the next one. Pat. So now, see, now that I did that, you can delete the old foreground buildings declarations and all of its properties since they're not needed anymore. The reason they're not needed anymore is because they're already being declared up here. So what we're trying to do is use something called the dry principle. Have you all heard of it? DRY, don't repeat yourself. This way we are optimizing our code by putting it all in one place. Amazing. Pat. Let's keep going. Cool. So our skyline is starting to come together. We're going to fill in the background color of our foreground buildings. Use your building color 1 variable to fill in FB3 and FB4. building color 2 for FB5, building color 3 for FB2 and FB6, and building color 4 for FB1. Cool. So background color here is going to be var. Remember, we use var to use that. Dash dash building color 1. Is that right? No. See? FB1 wants building color 4. I'm going to copy paste this because I'm lazy. FB2 is going to have building color 3. FB3 is going to have building color 1. FB5 is going to have building color 3. Wait, what is FB4 going to have? Oh, building color 1. FB5 is going to have building color 2. And FB6 is going to have FB background color of building color 3. Phew, okay. It's coming together, friend. That looks like a very colorful set of French fries. I'm sure it's going to look more like buildings in a bit. Pat. Cool. So this bootcamp is free. Free Code Camp is free. If you can donate to them so that they can keep their operations going. But you can always come back later. I'm going to do that later. I've got a learning account that I'm paying from. This teaching one, I will pay later. Cool. We're going to squeeze the buildings together again by adding 2 empty divs elements within the top, both the top and the bottom of foreground buildings element, and 1 more between FB2 and FB3. Cool. So we're going to do that spacing again, adding our invisible buildings. So 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom, and 1 more between FB2 and FB3. Yeah, looks good. Is it passed? Yep, pat. We'll keep moving. So we're going to move the position FB4 relative to where it is now by adding a position of relative and left of 10% to it. We'll do the same for FB5, but use right instead of left. This will cover up the remaining white space between the buildings. So position is going to be relative, and we'll have a left of 10%. So you notice, see it moved over a little bit. And we're going to do the same for FB5, position of relative, and a right of 10%. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Kind of gives it a cool vibe. Nice. Pat. How are we doing percent-wise? 29%. So coming up to our last 10 minutes, but we're just going to keep going. Oh, we're going to start adding comments. So above FB1 that says foreground buildings, FB stands for foreground building, to help people understand our code. Because it's how many lines of code do we have so far? 84. We're getting close to 100. So at this point, it makes sense to start. No, wait, we have over 100. So at this point, it makes sense if somebody else, or if because I often forget what it is that I was doing in some code, to leave comments as a way to describe what it is that the code does. So above the BB1 class, we'll add a comment that says background building. I'm going to copy this actually. Thank you. If you don't remember, CSS comments looks like this: /*, and we close it with */. So /*. So for the background buildings, that's not a star, */. And remember, the browser ignores it. This is just for us. We're leaving ourselves notes. So don't worry about it showing up in your code. As long as you use this syntax of /* and */, then the browser will ignore it, and then you can use it to leave yourself notes. So we're going to do one here. Whoopsie. /*. Cool. And /*. So now we've left ourselves some notes, some nice comments, so that when we come back or when a colleague of ours looks at this code, they'll understand what's going on. Looks good. Pat, pat. Let's keep moving. Great. So now we're going to create a new variable called window color 1. I'm going to give it a value of black. This will be a secondary color for the purple buildings. Interesting. Check our code. Pat, pat. Look at that. We're 40 steps in, friends. So gradients in CSS are a way to transition between colors across the distance of an element. And you might remember that we've used gradients before when drawing our markers. They are applied to the background property, and the syntax looks like this: gradient type, color 1, and color 2. In this example, color 1 is solid at the top, and color 2 is solid at the bottom, and between them, it transitions evenly from one color to the next one. In BB1A, let's add a background property below the background color property. Let's set it to be a gradient of type linear gradient that uses building color 1 as the first color and window color 1 as the second. So background is going to be set to be linear gradient, which takes 2 arguments. The first one is going to be the variable, the variable of building color 1. And the second one is going to, you can see it's already looking a little messed up, but we'll fix it. It's going to be the variable of window color 1. Look at that. So there's our gradient. Now it looks like it's got some shadow. It looks quite cool. A little bit of a moody Batman thing going on. So cool. We've got our linear gradient here. Cool. From purple to black. Amazing. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. So we want to add the same gradient to the next 2 sections. But instead of doing that, we're going to create a new class selector called BB1 window and move the height and background properties and values of BB1A to that new class selector. So below BB1A, we're going to have BB1-window. So the height, actually, I'm going to cut and paste this so we do this a little cleanly. Height we move, and background we move. Dink, dink. Now, of course, it looks different because BB1 window is not being applied to any elements. So my assumption is that that's what's going to happen next. Pat, pat. I keep wanting to click reset. That's not good. So we're going to add the BB1 window class to BB1A, BB1B, and BB1C. BB1-window. Because we're lazy. There's our cool windows. Nice. Check our code. Looks good. Pat, pat. And we'll keep moving. So we don't need the height or background colors in BB1A, B, or C anymore. So let's go ahead and remove them. I already removed it from here. Let's remove it from here and remove it from here. They still look the same. Remember, because BB1 window is applying that height property. Oh. Or background color. My bad. I forgot to remove the background colors. Remember, we're only removing the background color, not the background itself. They're not being applied anyway because the background property supersedes or overwrites the background color. Great. Pat, pat. So we can use as many colors as we like. So we're going to have this go from, for BB1D, we're going to use a linear gradient. That goes from orange to building color 1 to window color 1. So the background is going to be a linear dash gradient that takes 3 properties. The first one is the color orange. Then there's var, open brackets, dash dash, building color 1. And we're separating these with commas, remember? var. Oh, I can't quite see that. Can I add a return character here so it's a little bit more legible? That looks nicer. Var with dash dash window color 1. Look at that. That looks quite cool. And of course, we want to replace the background color with that. Check our code. Amazing. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. It's a little hidden behind the foreground buildings, but you can see the 3-color gradient there. Oh, since you're using that now, remove the background color property. I got a little ahead of myself. Sorry. Let's remove that background color. Looks good. I'll still pat, pat. I deserve it. We'll move to the next challenge. And remember, from the markers as well, we can specify where you want the gradient transition to complete by adding it to the color. So 20% of the way here in this gradient, we'll apply color 2. So we'll want it to do 80% for building color 1 so you can see it in action. So we'll go from orange, and then 80% of the way down, we'll apply building color 1. So you're going to see that is considerably lower now, as opposed to below. Keep an eye on it, yeah? See what's higher up? Now we're saying, no, only go 80% of the way down before you make it all the way to purple. Amazing. Looks good. Pat, pat. So we're going to remove the orange. And we're going to change the 80% to 50. Now it's halfway down. Color 1. And then the rest of the way, color 2. Pat, pat. So we're going to add parts to the background buildings now. We're going to have BB1, BB2A, and BB2B. BB2A. Close that div. I'm going to copy paste this because I'm lazy. And if I could spell correctly. Now it looks less messed up. Sorry about that. And BB2B. Great. So now we got those two. And you can see the borders at the top of the building. That means we're doing good. Pat, pat. So we're going to give BB2B a height and a width of 100%. Width and of 100% and a height of 100%. We're going to make it fill. Oh, wait. Yep. We're going to fill the building container. We'll add something on the top a little later. Interesting. Pat, pat. So we're going to create a new variable called window color 2. So we already know how to do this. Dash dash window dash color 2. The color is going to be ATC, DT9, and BT3. Should really stop making up words like that. But hey, 8CD9B3. Cool. Gives it a nice teal kind of color. Pat, pat. So coming up to the top of the hour, if it's cool with everybody, I want to do just a little bit more before we finish, just to get us in a good position so that tomorrow we can finish off this exercise and to minimize the amount of homework that y'all have. Cool. So we can often gradually change from one color to another. We can make the change a solid line like this. 0 to 40, 40 to 40. Oh, interesting. So we're going to add a linear gradient to BB2 that goes from, so background is going to be linear gradient. So it's going to go from var building color 2. And we're going to go from, whoops, sorry, I hid my windows, everybody. That was confusing. At 0%. So at 0%, it's going to be building color 2. For our next value, it's going to be var, we're going to put that building color 2 again, so that from 0 to 6% of the way, it's a solid green line. Then we're going to go from var window color 2, forgot my double dash, from 6%. And notice now it's kind of a very distinct line. And var dash dash window color 2 of 9%. Great, so you can see now it's a very strict color. So it's not so much a gradient as it is just like 6% of the way down make it one color, and then the rest of it make it the other. Pat. So we're at the top of the hour. I'm just going to do a little bit more. So we can now see that hard color change. Now we want to change the gradient type from linear gradient to repeating linear gradient. This will make the 4 colors of your gradient repeat until it gets to the bottom of the element, giving you some stripes and saving you having to add a bunch of elements to create them. This is cool. So instead of linear gradient, this is going to be repeating linear gradient. Look at that. 6%, 9%, and then 6 to 9, 0 to 6, 6 to 9, and then it repeats, giving it stripes. That is so done it with a bunch of divs. Good to know. And I would have probably done it wrong, and I would have suffered a lot. This is cool. Nice. Pat. Cool. So, okay, we'll do this next couple steps, and then I'll let y'all go. So we're going to turn the BB2A section into a triangle at the top of the building. We're going to use a little bit of like CSS art. First, we're going to remove that background color from BB2 since we don't need it anymore, because of course we got those stripes. Amazing. Pat. Then, whoa, okay. Let's copy paste and go through them. So BB2A, paste a whole bunch of stuff. Whew. Let's look at what's going on here. We now got a thick border on an element that gives you some angles where the two sides meet. You're going to use that bottom border as the top of the building. So let's see what we got. We got margin auto, so top, left, bottom, and right are auto. That's why it's centered as well. The width and the height are 5 relative to, what is a VW actually? Let's look this up in MDN real quick. I'm just going to switch. Responsive design. Viewport is 1 VW is equal to 1% of the viewport width. Gotcha. Thank you, Grace. Viewport width. So the width and height are 5% of the viewport width. Does that mean it gets... Oh, look, as I increase and I decrease it, it gets bigger and smaller. Cool. Then we've got our border top. 1 VW solid black, and gray. Cool. Let's check our code. Does that look good? Yes, it does. Pat. So we're going to remove the width and height from BB2A. And we're going to make the border left and right use 5 VW instead of 1 VW. The element will now have 0 size and the border will come together in the middle. So left and right will be 5 and 5. Ooh, look at that. Amazing. Yep. Pat. What an interesting way of doing art. Next, we're going to change the two 999s from BB2A to transparent. This will make the left and right borders invisible. Transparent. If I could spell that. Cool. Now you might be wondering, hey, hold on a minute. Well, there's still like that very thin border around it. Remember, that's the border around the building itself. It's not part of this BB2A that we're working on now. Cool. So we've got that kind of sideways checkerboard thing going on. I believe that's the scientific term. Let's check our code. Pat. We'll keep moving. So we'll remove the margin and border top properties to turn it into a triangle. Look at that. It's got a little hat on. Amazing. Is that Pat? It is. Pat. Cool. Finally, on the border bottom property of BB2A, we'll change the 1VW to 5VH. Wait, what? The border bottom to be 5VH. So 5% of the viewport height. At any time found this project, you can comment out or remove the border property you added to everything at the beginning to see what the buildings will look like when that gets removed at the end. Let's take a look. Where is this one? So I'm just gonna delete that real quick. Ooh, see, now our building has a little hat on. Ah, love it. Cool. So let's check our code. It does not. Change the border bottom. Oh, did it say that? Yeah, I did, didn't I? I didn't read that, did I? So change the 000 to be building color 2. I'm going to use var building color 2. Ah, there we go. Let's remove those borders again because I want to see it like without that line cutting it in between. Kind of looks like birthday cake candles now. Cool. Well, I believe we finished that exercise. Pat. And if there's nothing more to do with the top of the building, yep, on to the next building. This is where we'll stop for today, friends. So tomorrow we will carry on from step 59. So let's look at our city skyline progress. I skipped these first 3 because they're setting up the HTML. I would expect us to do that by tomorrow. And yes, tomorrow we will carry on from step 59, and we'll try to make it as far as we can until the end. That does not mean that we have nothing else going on today, friends. Let me bring up the schedule, which you can find here at Bad Website Club Web Dev Bootcamp 2023. So later today, in about 8 hours from now, we're going to have part 2 of our Couchbase partner session, where the amazing Naya is going to complete their implementation of the technical documentation project using VS Code and Netlify. So don't miss that. Tomorrow we'll be back with the city skyline, and 1 hour before the partner session, we're going to have our guest session where Miguel Useche is going to show us how to use our browser's dev tools. Do not miss it. It's going to be a wonderful time. Well, friends, that is everything for today. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, feel free to drop them either into the Discord, or if you want to ask stuff in the forum, we're on both places. You can go there. bit.ly BWC Bootcamp Forum. And that's it for today, my friends. I'll let you all go. I'll let you all go have an easy day. And I wish you all the best. And see you the next one. Bye for now. Bye for now.